Hey guys, long time no see. So last video I dropped you with the bomb, or a couple of videos ago I dropped you with the bomb that we moved house. I did an empty house or empty apartment tour of where we used to live, and then an empty house tour of where we're currently living. And in that video I asked you to put down questions that I'd answer, and because, you know, I didn't give any detail of how and why it happened and all that sort of stuff. So that's what today's video is going to be. It's going to be me blabbering on about why we moved and all that sort of good stuff. So first off, I just want to say thank you so much to everybody, for the majority of people on that video who showed love and respect and support for us. You know, it was a very quick decision, a very tough decision, but a decision we made all the same, and in the hope that it turned out okay. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. You know, I've been doing this channel since 2014, and which is a very long time when I say it out loud. You know, sometimes I've been consistent, then I disappear for a while, then I come back for a while, and then I disappear for a while. And you know, it's the longest thing that I've ever done, like as a hobby. You know, obviously in the past I had worked, and I would go to work every day for years and years and years. But yeah, this has been a really tough year for people. COVID has screwed up lots and lots of things, but it's also made us step back and appreciate our families and our friends, and really evaluate what we want in life and how we're going to achieve it. And that kind of plays in a tiny bit into our decision to move. But to just start the story, and all of the questions that I've read from the comments on that video will be answered someplace in here. So basically, friends of ours used to live in this house. They were renting this house, and they have 2 boys, and they wanted a little bit more space because the husband is self-employed and wanted a home office. He was currently kind of like renting a space somewhere else. So they moved directly across the road from us. Like, I'm looking out the window now and I can see their house. It's slightly bigger. It has a little bit more room, and they said that it suits them just a little bit better. They lived in this house for 6 or 7 years, and they said the only reason that they moved was because of the space issue. So as you know, we lived in that 2-bedroom apartment. We lived there since 2014. We've lived there for 6 years, and we've been having a number of issues there recently. We had the ongoing issue since we moved in of a leaky window, but the past 2 years it was really bad, and although they did try to fix it, nothing was working. Ava's room was always extremely cold and damp, and it just wasn't a great environment for her, because especially with her skin condition that she has, with the eczema, you know, and her lungs were she was constantly getting chest infections, lung infections, and all that sort of stuff. Our window is also leaking, but not half as bad as Ava's. Then something I never mentioned was 2 years ago we started to get carpet moths, and out of nowhere they just appeared, and we could not for the life of us get rid of those things. We reported it to our rental place, and you know, they weren't really bothered about it. They kept saying that they'll replace the carpets. Now the carpets had been there since the place opened, which was like early 2000s. So they've been in like 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years, I don't know. The carpet moths were obviously eating carpet, because that's what they do, and they were the same color as our carpet as well. So we were constantly just killing moths all the time and trying to prevent them, and spraying this and spraying that and hoovering all the time and all that sort of stuff. So we had carpet moths, and then the window issue, and then during lockdown, or just before lockdown, we had a building directly behind us that was like empty, derelict building, and I don't really know what they're doing with it. It's been like that since forever, since I can ever remember. It's been like that, definitely since like 2005. It's been like that, and people started to get in there. There is like a homeless and drug issue, as there is in most places. There wasn't just, first there was just a man living in there, and that was totally fine, and then, you know, more people kind of started to arrive, and the original guy went somewhere, I don't know. And then we had this guy there, and you know, he was fine. Like, he had a girlfriend that used to like shout and scream at him and all that sort of stuff, but it was fine. Then during lockdown, a drug dealer moved in there, and there was constantly people just hopping over the fence all the time. And you know, Ava would start to notice and question it, and it was just a constant like night and day thing. Nobody cared, no shit's given, like just going in to get their drugs, coming back out. And you know, that was irritating us a lot. So when at the very end of June, my friend contacted me to say that they were moving out of this house, and at the letting agency they'd put in a word for us if we wanted to move. Now the rent was going to be increased from where we were. You know, so I have a budget channel, it's called Karen's Budget and Plan. So I've been budgeting since, again, when Ava was born. So 2016, January 2016, we started budgeting. I started budgeting. You know, I ran through all the numbers of whether or not we can afford this, and it was going to make it tight, but I really wanted it. I really was kind of coming to the end of my tether with living in the apartment and all of the issues. We also had a guy on the 3rd floor of our apartment block who was just screaming and shouting at all times at night and hurling abuse at like his neighbors who were reporting him for being so loud and noisy. And I just always had these visions, like sometimes he'd like start crying and stuff, you know, and I always had these visions of, you know, something really bad was going to happen. We had reported him to the agency. We also reported him to the guards, you know, because his behavior was just very erratic. So there was all these kind of things going on, and it was just, and being on lockdown as well, we really noticed that not having a garden and not having a space that's safe for Ava to play and that was away from everybody was really a hazard. Because when we wanted to go outside, which we did every day, and obviously you had to stay away from people, was we'd walk to the graveyard and like water the flowers. We planted some flowers in the graves of like our family members who had passed away, or you know, that was really all we could do. There was no green space around us. There was the park, but then you'd hear reports of other kids being down in the park, and what's going to happen, especially with Ava, who's an only child. She's just going to be attracted to those kids. So anyways, we took the leap of faith, and we said early July we contacted them and said that we were interested in taking on this rental property, and all that sort of stuff. So we sorted out how much the rent was going to be, and I worked it into our budget. So we only had a couple of weeks. We had, I think, 4 weeks from the time that we said that we were going to take it to the move-in day, you know. So I spent that whole time, and I didn't upload, but I was spending that whole time working my fly lady cleaning routine, but then also decluttering that. So we did get rid of a lot of things before we moved. So you know, that was great for the time that we did move and that we were packing, because we didn't have half of this stuff. I donated stuff, I sold stuff, and I just gave stuff away for free, because I just wanted it out. It just was taking up too much space, and I just needed it out. So the week that we moved it was madness. So there's a whole big story which I can't tell, because obviously, you know, it's friends of ours and we don't want to be dogging them and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, there was a whole big story anyways, but eventually we got there. This house is clear, and we moved in that first day that I took the last video, and myself, my mum and Robert scrubbed the place, and we just started moving our stuff in. And then the next day, myself, Robert's mother and his nanny, although his nanny didn't really do anything, went to our apartment, and we scrubbed our apartment. So we just moved out, and we've been here we moved here on the 4th of August, and it's now the September 14th. And we've been here for over a month, and I absolutely love it. Within the first couple of days, children appeared at the door and were calling in for Ava, asking if she would come out to play. There is a green directly in front of our house, and there's so many kids out there. Now they are boys and kind of older boys. Now older is in like 8, 9, 10. So that is tough for her because there is girls on the further green, but obviously I need to be there with her at all times to play with them, so it's only really once a day that she's allowed down there, when we have some time, that I can let her play with those kids. But you know, they had organized a summer camp here amongst the kids, where they learned dancing, and she absolutely loved that, and she met some of the little girls down there. Now we've kind of befriended, there's 2 girls that kind of live like adjacent to us, so we've befriended them, and Ava goes to play with them sometimes if we find them out. There's 2 little kids that come and call for her, 2 little boys on the green that come and call for her, or she'd go call for them. Now again, I'm like watching her, standing out there most of the time with her as well, or I'm like, she doesn't know this, but I'm like staring out the window at her, just to make sure, because she's only 4, you know, I don't want her to like go off. So yeah, it has been absolutely amazing for Ava since we moved in here. The freedom that she has, the back garden, we have a trampoline in the back garden now, and she can play out in the trampoline, or she can play out on the green, and there's just lots of interacting for her, which is perfect. For me, first I was very, I wanted to move, but I didn't want to move. I was really apprehensive about it. I was really stressed about it. I wanted to cry. I was like, this is the terrible idea. Why are we doing this? Why are we going to pay more rent? It's fine where we live. But then when we made like a pros and cons list, the cons for where we lived was like pretty much like the whole of the sheet. So, you know, it was time to move on from there before I really started, you know, really disliking it. But you know, I was querying whether this was the best decision for us. Should we have done it? Why are we doing this? Yeah, so we just took the leap of faith. It was either going to work out for us or it wasn't, you know, and that's kind of what we done. That's kind of our attitude for it. So those last week of living in the apartment and the first week of living here, my stomach was so sick because of the anxiety and the anxiousness of it. But you know, it's worked out. I love so much stuff about this space. I'm so happy that we moved here. Like, the cons of it is more rent, extra bills, as in in our old place we only paid for electricity. Here we have to pay for electricity and gas, and also we have to pay for our bins. So there's 2 extra bills associated with this, plus the extra rent cost. So you know, that was kind of like a major thing, because Robert is the only person who works, and that's just what we've chosen to do for now, this season of life. I'm not saying that will be different, that will not change. Like, obviously I am trying to build my Etsy shop with the sticker shop and all that sort of stuff, and hoping that becomes somewhat a full-time income for me. It's slow progress, but these things generally are. But yeah, so right now really Robert is our only income earner, because any money that I am getting from the Etsy is reinvested back into getting better equipment and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so they're really the only cons. Like, the extra bills are really the only cons. Like, the pros of it is there is an abundance of kids that Ava can potentially play with. There's lots of space for her to run around. She has way more freedom. You know, our car is in the driveway right there. I don't have to like lug my grocery bags and my grocery shoppings upstairs and up elevators and all that sort of stuff. You know, I hated that. So yeah, there's what else is there? Just so many things. Oh, we have like a clothesline out in the back. We actually have two, kind of like a weird section. I will be doing like a garden update, so you can kind of see that. But we have clotheslines now, so I can literally wash and dry my clothes on the same day, because in the apartment it took me like 2 days. So if I put a wash on, I couldn't put a wash on until 2 days later, because it took so long for those clothes to dry, because we don't like to use the dryer. There is just so much space in this house, so you know, Robert could be down here, Ava could be in another room, I could be in another room, and it wouldn't matter. We have so much space. It's bright enough in here. It is still quite warm. Oh god, guys, there's so many. I have a garden. Like, I never really realized how much I liked gardening. Only 2 years ago, if you remember, I started like my balcony garden, and now I started again. I will show you, although some of my flowers are kind of dying now, but because it's the end of the summer. But I will show you a video where we created little like kind of border beds and all that sort of stuff. And you know, I've really loved that. I've really loved just kind of cleaning up the driveway, because there was lots of weeds and all that sort of stuff, and the front of the house, I've been doing that. I just really love the outside aspect of it. I like the community that's kind of here. You know, the parents of the kids are very friendly. They'll talk to you. Our neighbors on either side of us are absolutely lovely. They'll come out and they'll talk if you see you, or in general, the neighbors around will kind of stop and have a little chat with you. There's just so much things that I like about living here, that the extra financial impact isn't really an issue for us, because there's so many other pros of it. The only thing, and I know a lot of people asked me this, was about the dogs. So our rental agreement has said that we're not allowed to have any pets here, but we weren't going to bring our dog. A couple of videos during lockdown, I put up a video of well, we had 3 dogs in the video, but really we only own 1 dog. We got her back in 2010 when we lived in another rented place before we went traveling, and she's lived with Robert's parents for years now, like a good like 9 or 10, not 8 or 9 years should I say. While we pay for her care, like her vet bills and her food and all of those sorts of things, she lives in Robert's parents' house, and she's practically Robert's parents' dogs. Although she does know, it's funny, like she does know that she's our dog, you know what I mean, like the way she acts with us. But yeah, she's lived there for a long time. I could never see myself taking her from there, because they have 2 other dogs who love her. She loves the other 2 dogs. It would just be a whole big crying mess. So we just decided the best thing to do is leave her there. And also, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, is that Ava has an allergy to dogs. When she rubs dogs, or if they get anywhere near her face or all that sort of stuff, her face breaks out. So that's also something that we had to think about, because you know, she sheds a lot of hair. There will be hair hanging around no matter how much I hoover and all that sort of stuff. It will cling to things. So yeah, we just made a decision that we were just going to leave her where she is, where she's happy, and just continue like paying for stuff and going to see her every day and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's everything. I think I've answered the majority of things. Oh, there was also the debate about how we shouldn't have been renting somewhere, that we should buy a place, that we're wasting our money. And of course that is all true. Like, we are wasting money renting, but because Robert is the only income earner, and because we have a child, it is extremely hard to get a mortgage. We cannot really save for a mortgage on one income, because again, if you go to my other channel, Karen's Budget and Plan, you will see exactly where our money goes. So we don't really have that much to save after all of our expenses each month. So it's extremely hard for us to save, even though for our deposit, and we need a high enough deposit. We did go to a mortgage broker and a bank just to see what the situation was, and because Robert has dependents, as in me and Ava, or even just Ava, if he had to pay, if we weren't together and he had to pay some sort of maintenance payment, they wouldn't give him a mortgage because he has a dependent. Even if I were to get a job, I'd need to be in my job, a full-time job, for 9 months before we could apply for a mortgage. And on top of that, obviously we'd need at least a 10 to 20% deposit. So there's lots of variations of it, you know, and it was something that it was a choice we had to make. Lots of people were saying, why couldn't we move home? And it's very hard to move home when you have a child. Having a child really, you know, doesn't make the situation of you moving back into your parents' house easy. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 19 or 20, so it's been 15 years since I've moved out of home. You know, it's hard to move back. If there ever becomes a time where we have to move back, you know, it'll be a decision and a discussion with our parents, but for right now it's not something that we want to do. Paying someone else's mortgage but via paying rent is obviously not ideal. We know that we can pay a mortgage. A mortgage would not be how much we are paying in rent, it would be lower than that. But all of these variables are standing against us because we chose that I stay at home. As I said, that could change in a couple of years when Ava's in school, but for right now, this is what's happening, this is where it's staying, and that's how it's happening. So the debate on whether or not we should be applying for mortgages and all that sort of stuff is just not really relevant at this time. So yeah, that's it. I think that's everything. I think I've covered why. I think I've covered about the dog. I've covered about mortgages. I've covered about the reasons I like living here and how much more settled I am here and how much more I feel like an adult here. When I lived in the apartment, it just felt like I was going on about life, but I feel very adulty here. I don't know what that's about, but adulty. Is that a word? So yeah, that's it, guys. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover, you can contact me down in the comments or over on Instagram. Karen H Ireland is my Instagram, and I also have a Facebook, or Irish Family. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will be back with more updates, so I'm going to kind of squish together loads of updates that I made those first couple of weeks, just to share with you what's different, and then at the end of that kind of do a current house tour, everything, how it's looking and all that sort of stuff. I'll have a garden update, and I'm also going to do a grocery haul for you as well. So if you have any other videos, ideas of what you want about the new house or anything at all in general, do let me know down in the comments. I'll talk to you the next time, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.